Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. We've got a great guest for you today. We've got an amazing story. I know I tell you we have amazing stories all the time, but we do. And this one is really heartfelt because there are things going on in our country, and this isn't a political show, but there are things going on in our country with certain segments of our population that I think we really need to look at and address. And our guest today is helping us with that because she's written a book about her experiences in a mental health ward. It's called The Factory of Maladies, and it just came out April 22nd. So it's brand new, and it's a great book. She's also an artist. And she does that picture on the back wall right there is on the side wall right there is her art, and she's got a studio down in the basement or down in the garage, and that's where she does that. She's really, I'm very impressed with her because the story that she tells, while there were bad parts, she's come out the other side and is doing extraordinarily well. Debbie, it's great to have you here. How are you?
Thank you, Kevin. It's really a joy to be here, and thank you so much. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Well, our conversation is going to talk about a lot of things that we need to talk about, because a lot of people don't have the experience that you do and didn't go through what you went through, and so they really don't know, because it's out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So tell us your story a little bit, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So I'll give you a brief overview of my story. And my memoir is, it's an insider's perspective as to what a week on a psychiatric ward looks like. And I was there on a legal hold, so I was unable to check myself out, and I had to be released only when my psychiatrist thought that I was ready. And I woke up 8 years ago on a psychiatric ward, and I couldn't remember how I got there. The only reason I knew my name was because it was written on my hospital bracelet. But other than that, I had this huge blank spot in my memory. And I was terrified. And as the week progressed, I was able to remember in bits and pieces and fragments what led up to my hospitalization. And unfortunately for me, it was a suicide attempt. And that always, begs the question, what led to that? And so that is a lot of what my book is about. And the brief overview is that about 5 years before my suicide attempt, I became heavily involved with what I thought was a new age group. I thought they were helping and trying to heal the planet and be good people. And that sort of spiraled into this cult-like group and dynamic. And the next thing I knew, it was recommended that I go off of my antidepressants. And I did, because I was so trusting. And I think I'm just an overly trusting person. So that was sort of a natural thing. And then as the more I went down on my medication and eventually off of it, the more I became increasingly vulnerable to this cult dynamic and a very greedy guru. And then it was a tailspin. And the next thing I knew, I had been off of my medication for a year, and I was so depressed that I was suicidal. And I confided into the guru, who is acting as a therapist, And he suggested that it was karmic and that it was all right as long as I changed my will and left my small inheritance to him. So that's the background. And although it does seem, very intense and sad as it was, it does have, a happy ending in that I'm here and I managed to find dark humor amongst my journey. And I also healed in a way from a neurological deficit that I never thought I would overcome. And my purpose in life is to reduce stigma around mental illness and suicide in particular, and to help advocate for better treatment of patients on psychiatric wards.
That's an incredible story. And the first thing that I'd like to say, because I honestly know this to be a fact, the day the guru is dead. The day that you follow somebody because they tell you what to do, and they might give you a spiritual magic potion kind of thing, that doesn't work. And it really, what it is people, in my experience, in my short time on this planet, my experience is that people that do that are interested in self-aggrandizement for themselves and also enriching themselves at the expense of other people. And so if you are contemplating following some sort of spiritual guru, everything that is within you is enough. And it's not a matter of you following somebody else, because they may have, and often do have, ulterior motives, as you found out. And I'm so sorry that happened to you, because it's one of those things that we are all looking. And I've dealt with a number of these groups and people, and we're all looking for some way for someone to make us whole. And we don't think that we can do it ourselves, so we have to go somewhere else, and we have to listen to somebody else and listen to what they say because they're smarter than we are. It's just not true. Do you agree with any of that?
I do agree. And based on my experience, unfortunately, I was being controlled by someone who was extremely power and money hungry and greedy. And it was not only at my expense, but also at the expense of many others. And I honestly never thought I would have found myself in that sort of scenario. I had always prided myself on my skepticism and logic skills. And it happened so quickly. And it started, honestly, with a bundle of sage and a chakra balancing. And then, 10 years later, there I was. And I think in my case, it was actually a close relative of mine was involved in the cult. And she knew that I had certain weaknesses and suggested that this was a way to heal some past trauma. So I think had I not had that and I trusted her. So that was what made me extra vulnerable.
Well, and she didn't know either, is the thing.
No.
And so see, and that's the thing. Now, that's not to say that if you need therapy, you need therapy, and you need to go to somebody reputable.
Yes.
But somebody that is interested in creating a spiritual environment that may be or may not be real, and is just designed to put themselves on a pedestal. And if there's somebody that you are talking to and they want to put themselves on a pedestal, please run. Go find some help from a reputable person, but don't listen to somebody that is going to tell you. As an example, they told you to get off your meds that you had been on for a period of time because of the depression that you had suffered, and that's a brain thing. That's something that you needed to have done. And they said, I suppose they said, we're going to all heal you and we're going to meditate and it's going to be great. And you don't need those things anymore. Is that kind of what they said?
That's exactly what happened. And then it became sort of what you really need are spiritual healings from the guru, which basically just cost me a lot of money. So,
of course, because they never do that kind of thing for free because they love you.
Never.
They do it because that's how they make their money. And what I found is, and tell me if this was your experience in that cult, is that there are a lot of people that are former drug addicts, former people that have suffered abuse when they are children. They're looking for a way of becoming whole again, and they just don't see it for themselves. So they need somebody to believe in. And so this guy fills that gap for those people. And is that right?
Yes, I do agree with that. And he just really preyed on vulnerable people, especially women in this particular group who had lots of trauma in their lives, were maybe a little lonely, and also had, to some extent, a deep pocket.
It always helps when you got a deep pocket and you're going to go see a guru.
Right.
You get their attention fairly quickly when you tell them, I got some money, and oh, well, come here, child, I can help you. And
exactly, you go to the top of the list, top of the line.
and so, I don't want to dwell on the attempt because it's inconsequential, but so I can't imagine what it's like to wake up in a place that you'd never been and in a bed you've never slept in, and you have no earthly idea who you are.
No, it has been the most frightening moment of my entire life. And
yeah.
And also, I think it's important for people to know that the room in which I found myself was dark. There were bars on the window. It smelled of urine. My mattress was dirty. I was shivering and there was hardly any blankets. So the thought crossed my mind that perhaps I was in jail because that's how bad the circumstances were.
I can only believe, I can only imagine what that's like to wake up in that situation. And I assume the room was dark, but it was all white, and the walls were very nondescript and very empty, and it was like a prison cell.
It was completely sterile. And then I started to notice small little details, like there were no blinds on the windows and nothing to move the blinds. And I noticed a small bag of toiletries next to my bed, but there was no razor. So I started to think, oh, wait a minute, I'm not allowed shoes or shoelaces, no razors, no. And even in my haze, I sort of realized that this was a very scary, publicly funded psychiatric ward.
And by the way, we're talking about not in the deep south, or we're talking about what I would consider a reasonably enlightened city of San Francisco, where I think, and I don't know this, and I'll ask you we need to take a break, but when we come back, I wanted to ask you about the funding of in San Francisco, and because I know in some places in the South the funding just isn't there because they don't have enough for other things, and so. But it strikes me that this seems like it would be, if you had to go to a place because of that, and you were commanded to be there because of the attempt, that it would have been a little bit better, but apparently not. But by the way, we're talking with Debbie Hartung, and what I want you to do is go to her website, which is the Factory of Maladies, and look at the book. There's some portions of the book there. It talks about her story, and I highly encourage you to get this book because there's a lot more to the story that we're going to get into, but it's very important. And also, by the way, she has another website, which is, I believe, it is Debbie Hartung Artist. Is that right?
Art.com. Yeah.
Oh, very good. DebbieHartungArt.com, and you can look at all of her current work that she's doing. And I'm willing to bet that even if you wanted to buy one, you could. Would that be true?
This is very true. Yes.
And Debbie, you are delightful. And we will be right back after this 45-second commercial. So please don't go anywhere, anybody.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And Burchelle is normally here. She's under the weather today. So I'm sorry, Debbie, that she's not here. But you and I get to have a conversation, and I just love talking to you and your story because your story is so needed to be told. And you were in San Francisco when you were in this mental health ward, but it wasn't clean and it wasn't sanitary and it wasn't up to what I would consider to be a civilized society's standards. Would I be correct in any of that?
You're correct. The entire ward was just very sad. And as you mentioned before, it was extremely sterile. The walls were this bright, sort of glaring white, and the whole ward was extremely clinical. And it just struck me as being so bizarre because here I was with a bunch of other patients, all of us in, varying degrees of emotional distress. And yet everything around us was devoid of compassion, warmth, kindness, and care. And I believe that, every patient, no matter what is going on, deserves that. And especially when you're dealing with the emotional body and mental health issues, that's the time when you really need extra care and compassion.
I'm just curious, did they have music playing in the background?
No music, silence.
And I want to share this with everybody because I love music. Music is an important part of my life. And Debbie and her husband have got 2,000 records in their house so they love music too. Music can be so therapeutic. It can be so calming if it is meditative in nature, if it's the right. I mean, maybe Ozzy wasn't the best example of that, but something that was relaxing and stuff. So, but they weren't even playing any music.
No, however, there were occupational therapy sessions. So we were occupied for an hour or two every day. And I know those were designed to help, but in my experience, they unfortunately did not because the therapists, because of funding issues, were not really trained well. And they didn't know quite how to deal with people in a very fragile emotional state.
Wait a minute. Are you saying the occupational therapist didn't know how to work with people that were on the ward in that state? I thought that was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that's their job. I don't know.
Yes, I know they tried their best and they were extremely kind, but I think the default demeanor was to be extremely gregarious and happy, and it doesn't work when you're so depressed you've tried to commit suicide. To see somebody sort of so happy it's to the other extreme, it almost just makes you feel worse.
I can only imagine. So you had an hour therapy session a day. Did they bring you your meals in your room, or was there a place, a cafe or something that you gathered at? How did meals work?
So meals were served in a dining room. So you just walked there. It's a very small ward. So you walked there and you ate with your fellow patients. And sometimes could be a little frightening depending on where other patients are in their mental health journey. And they did their best to provide, healthy food, but I did not really have an appetite.
I can understand. Now, was there a menu, or was it everybody got the same meatloaf and mashed potatoes or whatever it was?
That's a good question. So I believe that there was a menu, and I have a vague recollection of using a miniature golf pencil and circling what I wanted for the next day. So at least there was some choice. So that was nice.
Did anybody help you with that, or was it all just, here's a piece of paper and a pencil, go figure it out?
Yes, that was it. Figure it out.
That's when you are in distress like that, and you're not particularly hungry anyway, and you're still trying to figure out how in the heck you got here and why you're here and how long you're going to spend here, because did they tell you any of that in the beginning, or did that come across sooner or later?
So it was all very, from my vantage point, it was very mysterious and confusing. So I did meet with a psychiatrist on the first day. And I will just interject that according to California law, the psychiatrist that signs you in to the psychiatric unit is the only person that can sign you out. So my freedom depended on my interactions and the approval, essentially, of this doctor. And unfortunately, we did not get along very well. And he was extremely curious as to what had happened, but he would not give me any practical information as to why I was on the ward or what exactly happened. But he implied that I should feel guilty about something that had occurred. And I couldn't remember what it was, what I did, what led to this unfortunate set of circumstances.
Did you ever find out what all that was that he was talking about? Well, first of all, I got to ask you, was he on call or at the hospital? Because I assume you went to the hospital at one point.
I did, yes. I have a very dear friend who was an angel and found me and called 911. So yes, I did spend a night in the emergency room, and then I was transferred to the psych ward.
And so he met you there in the emergency room?
No, I just met him on the psychiatric ward.
Wait a minute. So he admitted you and never met you before he admitted you? Or is it state law that if you attempt suicide that you have to go to the psych ward?
You do. You're put on a legal hold called a 5150. And so there was the doctors in the emergency room evaluated me, apparently. I can't remember what happened. And then they had an open bed on one particular ward, and that's where I went.
Well, apparently the bed that you got was occupied by somebody who peed the bed. So apparently at one point or another.
Yes, very true.
So then you met with him and you didn't get along with him. Well, and I can understand, because all of this stuff, you have no earthly idea where you are, how you got there, what did you do, and nobody's telling you anything. Is that fair?
That is true. The first 12 hours, I was just walking around in a daze, and they give you scrubs to wear. So I was wearing these scrubs, and I was in such a state and so physically ill from my attempt that I was I couldn't stop sweating and shivering and shaking. So I was walking around in these dirty scrubs, and you're not allowed to wear shoes. You're given slipper socks. So I was just dragging my feet and just, walking around trying to figure it out. But I just spent most of my day just feeling aimless and quite confused.
Well, when you're spending 23 hours a day other than mealtime with nothing to do, was there a television available for you?
There was, and I mentioned in my memoir that it was permanently on the Weather Channel. And unfortunately, it rained the entire week I was there, so that wasn't much entertainment either.
So you got real good at studying the weather maps that were on the wall and stuff, because that's all there was to look at.
I did, and the one sort of funny bit was that about on the 5th day, I had a burst of courage, and I went up to the television, and I thought, I'm going to turn the channel and see what happens. And so I was just about to click this old television, and I heard this voice saying, "Hey, I'm watching that." And it was one of my fellow patients, so I just left it. That's
and by the way, and the book that she wrote, The Factory of Maladies, is really cool because it's got a lot of humor in it as well. It's not a dark thing, but there's dark humor involved with it, like stories like that, which are really very human, and they're very important to tell and stuff. Now, did you form, and you were only there a week, but did you form any relationships with any of the other patients and any other, I assume, like women?
I did. I was really lucky. I had a fellow patient in the book. Her name is Lauren, and we were similar age and background, and she sort of took me under her wing because unfortunately she had a lot of mental health challenges, and she had been on many wards in her life. And one of the second day, I think, I was sitting alone in the day room, which is where you just watched the Weather Channel and sat around. And she just sort of looked at me and she said, "Is this your first time?" And I knew what she meant, and I said yes. And she said, "It can be scary your first time." And it was that moment of human tenderness and compassion and kindness. It was something I'll never forget the rest of my life.
Isn't that cool? So you had a mentor of somebody that had been through. It's like, come on, Debbie, I'll help you through this. I've been doing this for years and years, and let me show you some of the secrets that are out there that aren't generally known and that kind of stuff. So, well, I'm glad you found somebody that treated you with kindness, because it sounds like everything else was just kind of a perfunctory kind of deal. This is my job and this is what I do, and I don't really care to do this job, but I you know what I mean? There didn't seem to be a lot of compassion, or am I wrong?
No, you're right. In general, there was not a lot of compassion, and I really think it stems from, again, the lack of funding has created this sort of cycle where I really truly believe that the doctors and nurses and therapists really wanted to be more compassionate and kind and available, but their workload was so intense. There was always a shortage of beds, and they were seeing tons of patients and working 12-hour shifts. So I think they were unfortunately not only undertrained and underpaid, but also really burned out as well.
There is no way that you can be compassionate all the time when you're working 12-hour shift and you're not making enough money and you're not getting enough sleep and all of the things, and you don't have enough experience, and all the things, because the pay is not great. They do not get the top of the top. They get the brand new kids and the people that or people that are willing to work for that. Is that also true?
I'm not quite sure about the pay scale. I have a sense that it's better in California than in other
I would
states.
imagine, yeah.
Yes, but I think it was just the overworked aspect that was really contributing to their exhaustion and the lack of proper training to some extent. And that being said, there were exceptions. There were two nurses that were extremely kind and really went out of their way to help patients, including me. So I do feel lucky for their presence on the ward as well.
And by the way, we need to take our halftime break. And when we come back, I want to talk about, because you're versed in this and you've looked at it and you've written the book, I want to talk about healthcare in America as it revolves around mental health. I think we do a damn poor job as a society of taking care of people, and the stigma around mental health has got to go away, because it's like, if you break your arm, you go to the doctor. I broke my wrist 8 weeks ago, and in 5 days it had surgery and was repaired. And so they took that seriously. But sometimes mental health, it gets put on the back burner, or there aren't enough beds, so you've got people on the streets that are mentally challenged and need help. They need medication and stuff, and they're just not getting it in this country. And that, I think, is a major dilemma for us. I'm going to ask Debbie her opinion of that when we come back from this halftime break. We'll be right back. It's just a minute, so don't go anywhere.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Rochelle's out sick right now. She's hopefully going to be better soon. But we're talking with Debbie Hartung, and she's got a book out. It's called The Factory of Maladies, and I highly recommend it. It will give you, I think it will give you chills, because if you put yourself into her situation, you're not sure what's going to happen. You're not sure what day it is even. I'm willing to bet that was a problem for you, wasn't it?
That was a very big problem. I honestly did not know what day it was until about the fourth or fifth day, when I noticed there was a large dry brush sort of board with the date on it in the hallway. But other than that, I didn't know, and I had trouble focusing and reading, so it was even hard for me to read what was on my hospital bracelet.
That is amazing. So I wanted to touch bases with you, since you've been through this. Do you think that our ability to do mental health in this country needs help, that we're not doing enough?
I do. I think it's an emergency situation, and unfortunately, there's so many aspects that need a major overhaul and reform, starting from the stigmas surrounding mental health, which we've spoken about, the, the availability of medication, because if you're on a ward, a doctor can prescribe you meds while you're there, but if you're released and you don't have the money to pick up your meds or pay for them, or you don't have insurance to get proper therapy after, you're most likely going to end up right back on the ward. So there's that.
Now, the gal that befriended you, who had been on many wards and stuff like that, was that part of her problem? Was that she would go into these places and they would give her the medication and then she would feel better, but then when she got out again, she couldn't afford the medication and the therapy and the things that she needed, and so she ended up right back where she was. Is that kind of her story?
Surprisingly enough, it wasn't. She actually was highly educated and from a, an upper middle class family and had all the resources. She just suffered incredibly and had really challenging brain chemistry.
And that, can we talk about that for a little bit?
Sure.
Because I know that you suffered from deep depression, which is why you were on medication. And the reason that you were on medication was it balanced you out. Is that a fair statement to make?
It is. I've suffered from major depressive disorder and anxiety and PTSD almost my entire life. And my medication not only helped, give me a foundation, but it also compartmentalized certain traumatic memories and anxiety. So to be off of it, it was like a thunderstorm of past trauma was also hitting me on top of the depression.
Well, and the past trauma was part, and the PTSD, as I understand it, that's all part of the depression and all part of the things, because I can only imagine that if you suffered a lot of trauma as a child or previously in your life, and then you're off the medication that kind of prevents you from reliving that then you relive it like it's today. Is that fair?
That is very fair. And in my case, I relived it 24 hours a day for a year, and then I couldn't take it anymore.
And so it affected your sleep, it affected your appetite, and it affected everything about you, didn't it?
It did. It got to the point where I couldn't feed myself. My husband had to feed me. I was probably 60 pounds less than I am now. I just could not function.
And when I got to ask you, because this cult that you were part of, didn't they notice that you were changing and the changes that were happening weren't good? Or did they just say, we'll just do another Reiki balancing, or we'll do another chakra balancing and we're going to be fine?
So, yes, so they knew. However, it was all remote. So it was all conveniently phone healings and, that sort of thing. So the obvious, states of illness, they didn't know, but they also didn't ask and didn't really care to know either.
Well, it's one of those, because by the way, the medications that you were on, number one, are powerful. Number two, there's withdrawal from them. Yeah. And so you have to be very careful about how you withdraw from them, because they can be difficult. And but at the same time, once you withdraw from them, if you still need to be on them because of the brain chemistry and stuff, and then nobody sees that, it makes it really tough for you.
It does. And my husband and close friends were, so concerned. They didn't know what to do. But when I'm depressed, I'm very stubborn. And so I wouldn't listen to them. And I was so brainwashed, I kind of ignored their advice. So people did try to help, but they just couldn't penetrate through my intense depression.
And also you were attached to this cult and you believed what they were telling you, and when your family and friends are telling you something different, then you have to, in your own mind, make a decision as to who's right and what the motives are. But if you think that he's right because he's the guru that you should be following because he knows all, and most gurus will tell you that I know everything and I can do just about anything. By the way, sign this. This is where your inheritance now goes to my bank account.
Yep. That sums it up. Yes.
So again, if you're listening to this and you're talking to somebody who claims to be a guru, please run and don't look back, because you are the captain of your own ship. It's what's in your heart and what's in your soul that determines what you're going to do. And you have every opportunity to do that without the benefit of somebody to tell you what to do. Do you agree with that?
I do. Yes. If you feel that you're in a situation with a guru or someone that's an unlicensed therapist, doctor, please leave and find a psychiatrist and a licensed therapist to help you.
And there are really good ones out there. So, but we were talking about, personally, I drove a bus in Seattle for 12 years. And when people say, oh, you drove a bus, it was a city bus. And so I had people that drove the bus because they were on their way to the office. And I had people that did not have $2 for bus fare. Or were drug induced, or were addicts and stuff like that. But the common theme of homeless people, a lot of them, some, for whatever reason, I like the freedom of being homeless. That's cool for me. I could do anything I want. But most of the time there's mental health issues involved. And if they don't get if they don't get the help that they need, because there's no place to get help. And in the city of Seattle, there are some places, but not nearly enough. And apparently in San Francisco too. But I think the state of how we're taking care of a relatively large segment of our society, would that be accurate? Because there are a lot of people with PTSD, a lot of people with depression, a lot of people with bipolar. There's a lot of stuff out there, isn't there?
There are definitely and there's so many that suffer, and not everyone that's depressed obviously, goes to the extreme that I did. But I'd love to share that when I was first giving people copies of my manuscript to read, I didn't really expect much. And people, came back with, some nice feedback, and that was nice, but it wasn't really what I was actually after. What was the most important thing was that people started taking me aside and saying, I went through a really bad depression when I was a teenager, or my best friend, is, terrified and has terrible anxiety, or, other really much more extreme, sad stories. But I learned that everybody, I'd say like 9 out of 10 people that I showed my manuscript to could relate to mental illness on the scale to a varying degree.
Well, and back in the day, I had an uncle, and he was a military veteran, and he had what PTSD would be, what they would call it today. And he was at Western State Hospital for a period of time, and but they relied upon barbiturates at night and amphetamines in the morning to put you to sleep and then to wake you up, and then you just kind of hung around. Well, he ended up deciding he was going to leave the hospital, and the only way that he knew how to get from Tacoma, which is where it is, to Seattle, which is where my mom was, is up I-5, which is the major interstate highway between Tacoma and Seattle. And while it was dark, and he wasn't thinking straight, and so therefore he got hit by 7 cars and was killed. It is tragic when something like that happens to someone that you love because of a mental illness that is, in those days maybe it wasn't, but today It's totally preventable. We have got the technology to be able to regulate the brain, and it's not a stigma thing. It's a chemical. It's just a chemical thing of what's going on in the brain, isn't it?
Yes, I totally agree. That's a chemical imbalance. And you mentioned breaking your wrist, and I agree. You know, if you have high cholesterol, most likely you're going to be given statins in addition to some exercise and diet changes. And I think it can be monitored and, you know, healed to some extent just as easily as that.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, if you don't have a mechanism by which to get people help, guess what? They're not going to get help. And if they can't afford the medication, okay, I get it. If somebody's saying, well, you know, if they're buying the beer and they can't afford the medication because they're buying the beer, but that's a separate issue. The issue is it's not even available to them, and it's expensive to get this medication, isn't it?
It is, yes. I mean, I think it depends on what you're on, but if you don't have insurance, then you're looking at serious out-of-pocket expenses. And I think at the end of the day, people just don't want to be in pain. So if that means, you know, turning to alcohol or drugs or something else, I think it's just because they're trying to fill that void and to self-medicate and feel better.
I always laugh at people in my maybe internally that go, well, you know what? It's all because they're an alcoholic or because they drink too much. Well, you know what? That's a symptom. It's a symptom of something else. And if you are paying attention to what the symptom is, which is perhaps drinking or drug use, and then you look deeper to find out what the pain is that is leading them to do that, that can be a completely different conversation. Do you agree?
I do agree. Yes, finding the root of the pain, I think, you know, although uncomfortable, is essential. It's a great way to start the healing process.
And by the way, we're talking with Debbie Hartung, and if you go to her website, which is The Factory of Maladies, it's a book that she has out. It came out in April, and I highly recommend it. She's got funny parts, and she is very clear about what the book is about, and has got great reviews. She's also an artist, and you can go to Debbie Hartung Art.com, and you can find all about her art. And if a particular piece resonates with you, don't hesitate, just buy it. And we're going to return with more. But Debbie, I want you to listen to this commercial because it's not even a commercial. It's something that I created because this is what I believe strongly, and I would love your opinion on it on the other side, as well as everybody else who's listening. The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this: be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Debbie, what did you think of that?
I thought it was beautiful, absolutely wonderful, and I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. And although sometimes it doesn't feel like kindness is being rewarded, I do try to live my life in a kind and compassionate manner. And at the end of the day, I always feel better when I've acted from that perspective.
And that, by the way, is the reward.
It is, yeah.
Because you feel better Even though, I'll tell you a story. Like I said, I was a bus driver for 12 years. I made it my mission to say hello to everybody that got on the bus. Hey, how are you? Hey, nice to see you. Nice to see you again. Yeah, you look nice today, or whatever it was. And 20% of the people, 20% of everybody that I talked to actually responded and said, I'm great. How are you? 20%. That means 80% did not. However, that wasn't the reason I did it, to get gratification from people. I did it because that's who I am and that was in my heart to do. So I could leave every day and I could feel good about me because I did the right thing and was kind to people. Does that make sense? Or am I?
It does. It does make perfect sense to me. And I think that's a great example of a way in which to lead your life from a perspective of kindness and generosity to your fellow human beings.
And that's why I do this show, because this is, I firmly believe that we have got the opportunity, but in order for us to exercise that opportunity, we have got to take care of each other, and that means take care of everyone, not just the people that it's easy to take care of, or the ones that don't cause us any trouble. We need to take care of people who, for lack of a better term, have got issues, and we can solve those issues, and we can work together for the betterment of everybody, or we're not going to do it for anybody. Does that make sense?
That does. I think it's very well said, and I'm a firm believer in that everyone deserves to be treated well and to be taken care of, medically speaking also.
And I was struck when you were telling me about when you woke up in the ward and there was a smell of urine and it was very dark and very dank and there were bars on the windows and all that kind of stuff. The people who run the facility know that that's all there. There's steps that they could take to make it more hospitable for those people, because I don't blame you. You were scared out of your mind when you woke up that day.
I was so terrified. I can't even really articulate how scared I was, but I think you get a sense that it was truly frightening. And
well, put it, and everybody that's listening, I want you to close your eyes unless you're driving, and I want you to put yourself into that place. You're in a strange place. You don't have any idea how you got there. And it's not a place that you would like to be. You're not sure if it's in the hospital still, or if it's in a jail, or where it is, and nobody's talking to you. Nobody's coming to say, "Hi, welcome. How are you?" Because that's not what they do, apparently, and stuff. So put yourself in that position. That would be terribly scary. And congratulations on getting past it, because now let's fast forward 8 years, shall we?
let's do it.
So now you've got the book out. You've taken the time to write it down. You've got a second book coming, yes?
Potentially, of short stories, yes, a work of fiction.
Cool. And you're an artist, and so you've got lots of art. You said you paint every day and stuff. So would it be fair for me to say your life is full and complete now that the brain chemistry is under control and you've got the right medication and everything's going well?
Yes, I'm really happy to say that I've made it through to the other side, and I'm extremely lucky and back to my sort of old self before my major depressive disorder. And I'm happy and content, and I do feel creative. And I just will say, though, that every day I do live with some deficits that I've incurred from my attempt. And that is slightly challenging, yet it's also this constant reminder to be grateful that I've healed so much. And it also reminds me to not judge myself and to try to help others.
Self-forgiveness is a art form that is not generally taught. People tend to not accept it or look at it that way. But in order for you to forgive anybody else, you have to forgive yourself. What happened in the past, I don't know if you know this, but you can't do anything about what happened in the past. Did you know that?
Somewhere in my brain I did, but I tend to forget that little tidbit of knowledge.
But what you do have is the ability to positively make today the best day that you can. And when you wake up in the morning, you have got the ability, we all have the ability to be able to say, there was a guy by the name of Frosty Westerling. He was a coach at PLU for many years, a national champion coach. He wrote a book called Make It a Great Day. He would tell his kids every day when they came to the field, today is your day. You're gonna make it a great day. And so that we all have the ability and the opportunity to do that when we wake up in the morning. Because for some of us, we're surprised that we actually did wake up in the morning. But if we did, then it's a really cool thing to be able to say, I'm going to make it a great day today.
Yes, I'm going to start using that every morning. I love that.
We all have the ability to decide what kind of a day we're going to have. If we're going to have a crappy day, it's because we said at the very beginning, boy, I'm going to have a crappy day today. But if you say, no, I'm going to have a great day, and regardless of what then happens, you can deal with it. And sometimes it's not that everything comes up roses. Sometimes bad things happen during the day. But if you have the proper attitude, and you said it best earlier, Debbie, resilience. You have got resilience. Do you agree with that?
I do. I'm very lucky that through this journey, I discovered a sense of resilience that I did not know I possessed.
Say that again.
I discovered a sense of resilience that I did not know I actually had.
Isn't that a freeing experience all by itself?
It is very gratifying and freeing and just really special.
And Debbie, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I've just got a couple of minutes left. The Factory of Maladies. Go get the book. You can get it at Amazon. You can go to our website and a bunch of other places. So find it and use it. We've got just a minute and a half. I would love for you to tell our audience anything that you would like them to know.
So I would just like to share, once again, that, stigmas around mental health, while they may exist, I'm here to tell you that it's okay. It's completely normal. Everyone deals with it to some extent. And I just encourage you to get the help that you need. And also, I just like to shed a little light on the fact that actually writing my book and creating while being on a stable medication regimen has healed me more than anything, the creative process. So I encourage you to find something that brings you joy.
That is very well said. And live your life every day with passion and with purpose, because we all have a reason to be here. And I'm glad, by the way, that you've been successful at so many things. The book is a great success. Your art is a great success. I'm so glad that you failed at the one thing that I don't want for you, and that you recovered from it. And now the sky's the limit. And I'll bet you your husband is very happy about all that too.
He is. He's very happy. And we ended up getting married a year after my release from the hospital. So that was really special too.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. And by the way, in his will, who gets the 2,000 records? Is that you?
I'm not sure. He has a daughter, so I think it might go to her.
I was joking with her beforehand, and we got to go. But I was just saying, how long would it take to listen to every? And she said, "Well, you mean from ABBA to ZZ Top?" And it's like, oh, wow, you are educated in music. You must have a whole catalog by alphabet.
We do. Yes, it's great. It's so fun to listen to vinyl every day. I highly recommend it.
Well, and that's the thing. My son will tell me, and I don't disagree with him, that vinyl, the original format, the original way it was designed and put out into music, that's the best way to listen to it. CDs don't hold a candle to it. Digital doesn't hold a candle to it. Go get a real record player, not a cheap one, but a real good record player, and you will hear things that you've never heard from your favorite songs. Do you agree?
I do. Just go out and buy a record, sing, dance, just have fun.
Because you know what? That's all there is. We all have to. We all are better served if we have a great life and are fun. So, Debbie Hartung, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. It's been such an honor and a joy to be here, and I really loved our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, and you'll have to come back and
That'd be great.
keep me updated as to what's the art's doing, and as you continue to evolve, because you're still a young woman. You've got a long time to really make an impact in the world.
Thank you.
Have a great day, Debbie, and everybody else have a great day as well, and thank you for listening to Positive Talk. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to